The boardroom fell silent when Marcus stepped in, his daughter's glitter-stained backpack still slung over his shoulder because daycare pickup had run late again. 20 pairs of executive eyes tracked him as he slid into his seat, cheeks burning. But it wasn't the lateness that made his colleagues smirk and elbow each other. It was her, sitting at the head of the table in a crisp navy suit, fingers steepled beneath her chin, watching him with those unreadable dark eyes that had haunted his thoughts for 6 months now. Olivia Chen, his boss, the woman his so-called friends had bet him $500 he didn't have the courage to ask out. The worst part, she was smiling. Marcus had moved to Seattle 18 months ago with his 4-year-old daughter Zoe after his ex-wife decided motherhood didn't fit her Instagram aesthetic anymore. One day he came home to divorce papers and an empty closet. No fight, no custody battle, just a note saying she needed to find herself in Bali, and he could keep their daughter because she'd always been more his anyway. Those words had cut deeper than the abandonment itself. Being a single father at 28 wasn't how Marcus had imagined his life unfolding. He'd pictured partnership, teamwork, the whole fairy tale his parents had modeled. Instead, he got 5 a.m. wake-ups with a preschooler who only wanted to wear her mermaid costume, frozen dinners he pretended were homemade, and a permanent anxiety about being enough for a little girl who deserved the world. The finance job at Chen Innovations had been a lifeline. Good salary, decent hours, and a boss who actually understood when he needed to leave early for parent-teacher conferences. Olivia had interviewed him herself, barely glancing at his resume before asking him about his daughter. He'd stumbled through an answer, expecting judgment, but she'd just nodded and said, "The position is yours if you want it. Anyone who can manage a toddler can handle our quarterly reports." She'd been nothing but professional since then. Brilliant, demanding, impossibly competent. She ran the tech startup her parents had founded with a blend of innovation and integrity that made people actually want to work there. But there was something else about her, something in the way she'd bring extra coffee to morning meetings after he'd mentioned Zoe had been up sick, or how she'd casually restructured his project deadlines after his babysitter quit without notice. His coworkers had noticed too. They'd started the teasing 3 months ago. "Boss lady's got a soft spot for you, Marcus. When you gonna shoot your shot, man? I bet you won't even try." Until last Friday, when Derek from accounting had made it official, $500 if Marcus asked Olivia Chen on a date by the end of the month. $500 he desperately needed because Zoe's preschool had just increased tuition, and his car was making a sound that definitely required a mechanic he couldn't afford. But it wasn't about the money, not really. It was about the way his heart jumped every time Olivia walked into a room. The way she'd pulled him aside last week and quietly mentioned a parenting support group her sister recommended. The way she'd been the first person to ask him how he was doing, not how Zoe was doing, like his well-being mattered too. Now, sitting in this boardroom with her eyes on him and his coworkers' barely contained laughter echoing in his ears, Marcus realized they'd planned this. They'd told her about the bet. They'd set him up for maximum humiliation. "Mr. Thompson," Olivia's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. "Professional. Cool. Since you're the last to arrive, why don't you start us off with your quarterly analysis?" He fumbled through his presentation, hyper-aware of every whisper, every knowing glance. When he finally sat down, his shirt was damp with sweat. The meeting dragged on for another 40 minutes. When Olivia finally dismissed everyone, the room emptied quickly. Too quickly, until it was just the two of them. "Marcus." She hadn't moved from her seat. "Stay a moment, please." His stomach dropped. This was it. The professional conversation about workplace boundaries and inappropriate betting pools and how he'd need to find a new job. But instead, she stood and walked around the table, leaning against it directly in front of him. Close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. "So," she said, and there was that smile again. "Are you going to ask me, or do I have to do everything myself?" Marcus's brain short-circuited. What? Derek told me about the bet 3 days ago. I was wondering how long it would take you to work up the courage." She tilted her head, studying him. "For what it's worth, I told him he was an idiot for putting you in that position. But I also told him that if you did ask, I'd say yes." The world tilted sideways. You would, Marcus." Her voice softened, and suddenly she wasn't his boss anymore. She was just Olivia, looking at him with something warm and vulnerable in her eyes. I've been waiting for you to see me as something other than your employer for 6 months. I've brought you coffee. I've rearranged schedules. I've asked about your daughter so many times that my assistant thinks I'm conducting surveillance. I've done everything except send up flares. But he gestured helplessly. You're you, and I'm just the guy who shows up late with glitter in his hair and wrinkled shirts. You're the guy who brings his daughter's artwork to put on his desk because she told you it would make your office less boring. You're the guy who always remembers everyone's birthday because you keep a calendar, the same way you track Zoe's activities. You're the guy who triple-checked the data on the Anderson project because you knew 7 people's jobs depended on getting it right. She paused. You're the guy the first haven't been able to stop thinking about since you walked into your interview and the first thing you did was show me a picture of your daughter's first day of preschool. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. I'm terrified, he admitted. Zoe's been through so much. Her mom just left. What if this doesn't work? What if I screw it up? What if you realize I'm just a mess pretending to have my life together? Olivia reached out, her fingers gentle on his jaw, tilting his face up to meet her gaze. Do you know what I see when I look at you? I see a man who shows up every single day for his daughter. Who learns to braid hair from YouTube videos. Who packed a purple lunch box with dinosaur nuggets cut into stars because that's what she asked for. I see someone who's doing the hardest job in the world alone and somehow still manages to be kind to everyone around him. I'm scared I don't have enough to offer you, he whispered. Marcus. She smiled, really smiled, and it transformed her entire face. I've spent 32 years building this company, being the Ice Queen, the woman who has it all figured out. Do you know how exhausting that is? How lonely. I go home to an empty apartment every night and wonder if this is all there is. Her thumb brushed his cheek. Then you came along with your chaos and your honesty and your beautiful daughter, and I thought maybe there's more. Maybe there's someone who'd want to share the mess with me. About time, someone said from the doorway. They both jumped apart to find Marcus's assistant Sarah grinning at them, arms full of files. Sorry, but we've all been watching this slow burn romance for months. Derek's an idiot for making it a bet, but if it finally got you two to actually talk to each other, I guess we owe him one. She dumped the files on the table. Also, Marcus, Zoe's daycare called. She's fine, but she refuses to nap until you send her a smiley face text. Their words, not mine. Marcus fumbled for his phone, and Olivia leaned over to see the message. She has you well trained, she observed. You have no idea. Last week she made me text her every hour at work to make sure I was being good. Smart girl. Olivia straightened. How about this? We do this properly. No bet, no pressure. Dinner, this Saturday. I'd like to meet Zoe, if you're comfortable with that. The panic must have shown on his face because she quickly added, or we can do adults only first. Whatever feels right. I'm not trying to rush into her life. I know that's complicated. Marcus thought about it. Thought about Zoe, who'd been asking lately why everyone else had mommies. Thought about the careful walls he'd built around his heart and his daughters. Thought about this extraordinary woman who somehow saw past all his chaos to something worth wanting. Saturday works, he said. But fair warning. Zoe will ask you approximately 1 million questions, show you every toy she owns, and probably try to convince you that ice cream is a vegetable. I'm Chinese. My mother's already mastered the art of relentless questioning. I think I can handle a 4-year-old. Olivia's expression turned serious. But Marcus, I need you to know I'm serious about this. About you. If we do this, I'm all in. I don't do casual, especially not when there's a child involved. Neither do I, he said quietly. I can't afford to. Not with Zoe watching everything I do, learning what love is supposed to look like. Then we'll show her it looks like honesty. Like showing up. Like two imperfect people trying their best. She glanced at her watch. Now go send your daughter that smiley face before she stages a preschool revolt. And Marcus, tell Derek he can keep his money. Some things aren't about bets. That Saturday, Marcus stood outside an Italian restaurant in downtown Seattle, Zoe's hand in his. She wore her favorite purple dress and had insisted on wearing her plastic tiara because they were meeting a princess boss lady. Marcus had given up trying to explain corporate hierarchies to a 4-year-old. "Daddy, you're sweating," Zoe observed with the brutal honesty of children everywhere. "I know, baby. I'm just nervous." "Why? Miss Olivia brings you coffee. That means she's nice." Out of the mouths of babes. Before Marcus could respond, Olivia appeared, and his breath caught. She'd traded the power suits for jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. She looked younger, more relaxed, and somehow even more beautiful. But what really got him was the way she immediately crouched down to Zoe's level, ignoring him entirely. "You must be Zoe. Your dad's told me so much about you. I love your tiara." Zoe studied her with serious eyes. "Are you going to be my daddy's girlfriend?" Marcus wanted to die. "Zoe, we talked about this. It's okay," Olivia said, still focused on his daughter. "I'd like to be, if that's okay with you. But only if we all get to be friends first. What do you think?" Zoe considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. "Do you like mermaids? I think they're some of the coolest creatures in mythology. Do you know how to make pancakes? I make pretty good ones. My mom taught me. Do you make my daddy sad?" The question hung in the air. Marcus saw Olivia's eyes fill with understanding, with compassion for a little girl who'd already learned that people could leave. "No, sweetheart," Olivia said gently. "I'm going to try very hard to make your daddy happy. And you too, if you'll let me. But if I ever do something that makes either of you sad, I want you to tell me, okay? Because friends talk about their feelings." Zoe processed this, then nodded and took Olivia's hand. "Okay, can we get spaghetti? Daddy always cuts mine into tiny pieces. I think we can manage that." Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Zoe chattered nonstop about preschool drama, showed Olivia the gap where her tooth had fallen out, and somehow convinced both adults to let her order chocolate milk and lemonade mixed together. Marcus waited for the judgment, for signs that Olivia was overwhelmed, but she just laughed and asked Zoe to name the concoction. "Chocolate lemon surprise," Zoe declared, then proceeded to decide it was, actually pretty gross, after one sip. Later, after they'd walked to a nearby park and Zoe had exhausted herself on the swings, she fell asleep in Marcus's arms. He and Olivia sat on a bench, his daughter's soft breathing the only sound besides distant traffic. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly, "for being so good with her. She's wonderful. You've done an amazing job." Olivia leaned her head against his shoulder. "Can I tell you something? I was terrified too. I kept thinking, what do I know about kids? What if she hates me? What if I prove I'm not cut out for this? And now I think maybe we're both overthinking this. Maybe it's okay to just try. To take it one day at a time." She laced her fingers through his free hand. "My parents fled China with nothing but their education and each other. My mom always said the secret wasn't having everything figured out. It was finding someone you wanted to figure it out with." Marcus kissed the top of her head, breathing in the reality of this moment. 6 months ago, he'd been drowning, convinced he'd never have space in his life for anything beyond survival. Now here was this incredible woman, offering not to save him but to build something together. "So no more bets," he murmured. "No more bets," she confirmed. "Just us. Honest, messy, imperfect us. I can work with that." 3 months later, Marcus walked into the office to find his desk covered in sticky notes. Messages from coworkers, all variations of, "finally," and, "we knew it," and, "you're both idiots but we love you." Derek had left one that just said, "You're welcome," in all caps, which made Marcus roll his eyes even as he smiled. Olivia appeared in his doorway, professional demeanor back in place, but with a warmth in her eyes meant only for him. "Mr. Thompson, do you have those reports ready?" "Almost, Ms. Chen, though I might need to work late tonight." "Funny, so do I. Perhaps we should order dinner." Her lips twitched. Zoe mentioned she wanted to try that new Thai place. Did she now? And when did you two plan this? "Oh, we have our ways. She's quite the little strategist." They'd been taking it slow, building something real. Olivia had met Marcus's parents, who'd immediately adopted her into the family. She'd taught Zoe how to count in Mandarin. She'd been there the night Zoe had a nightmare about her mom and needed 2 hours of reassurance that people who loved her wouldn't leave. It wasn't always easy. They had arguments about work-life balance, about how much Olivia should be involved in parenting decisions, about Marcus's tendency to shoulder everything alone rather than asking for help. But they talked. They showed up. They kept choosing each other. And slowly, Marcus learned that letting someone in didn't mean weakness. That accepting help wasn't failing Zoe. That love could look like a woman who learned how to braid hair so Zoe could have fancy styles for school pictures. Like someone who respected that he needed to be Zoe's primary parent while still making space for herself in their lives. That night, after Thai food and a bedtime story, after Zoe was tucked in with her mermaid toy clutched tight, Marcus found Olivia on his apartment balcony, looking out at the Seattle lights. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Just thinking how lucky I am. That Derek's an idiot, but a useful one." Marcus laughed. "Never thought I'd be grateful for a bet." "It wasn't the bet though, was it? It was you finding the courage. Me being brave enough to be honest." She turned in his arms. "It was both of us deciding that the risk was worth it. Best decision I ever made." "Well, second best. Zoe's still number one, as she should be." Olivia kissed him softly. "But maybe there's room for both. Room for all of us to be a family." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "You really want that? The chaos and the glitter and the 3 a.m. emergencies. I want you. All of you. The brilliant analyst, the devoted father, the man who's still learning to believe he deserves good things." She cupped his face in her hands. "And I want to be there when you finally figure out that you do." In the apartment behind them, Zoe had crept out of bed and was watching through the glass door, a knowing smile on her 4-year-old face. She'd already told her preschool friends that Miss Olivia was going to be her bonus mom. She'd already started drawing pictures of their family, 3 stick figures holding hands. Children, Marcus had learned, understood the important things faster than adults. They knew that family wasn't about biology or convention. It was about who showed up, who stayed, who loved you through the mess. His coworkers had dared him to take a chance. Olivia had smiled and said, "About time." But the real story wasn't about bets or courage. It was about 2 people brave enough to build something real in a world that told them they weren't enough. A single father who thought he had nothing to offer. A woman who'd armored herself in success rather than risk vulnerability. And a little girl who knew, with the wisdom of innocence, that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose. Marcus pulled Olivia closer, grateful for messy beginnings and patient hearts, for second chances and the people brave enough to take them. Behind them, Zoe giggled and scampered back to bed, already dreaming of a future where love looked like breakfast pancakes and bedtime stories, like showing up and staying put, like 3 imperfect people choosing each other every single day. About time, indeed.